President Trump just announced that the hostages are coming home. He says, I am very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America. And we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. My wish was that I would be wrong, saying that it was highly unlikely they were going to get a deal out of this. And if you recall, as we've talked about it over the past few days, I've said that. I really hope I'm wrong, but I'm skeptical. And even just 2 hours ago, Hamas was still making noises like they were not going to go for this. They were asking for concessions that Israel was not willing to provide, like Israel has to completely pull out, et cetera, et cetera. And number two, it bears saying that no hostages have been released yet. They're saying that they will release all 20 living hostages, but they also have pointed out, as I had said before as well, that they really don't know where all of the dead hostages are. Between 7 and 12 of the deceased hostages, they can't find them. They don't know where they are. They may never be found, but they are essentially going to release all 20 living hostages at one time. And then Israel's not going to do anything until that happens. Once that happens, then Israel will pull back to agreed upon point. They will still control about 57% of Gaza. Now, we got this picture just a little while ago of a handshake going on. This is in Egypt, I believe, and they are shaking hands on an agreement. So Jared Kushner is there, Steve Witkoff is there. These are Qataris here, and the guys in suits are Egyptian. So they are saying Israel and Hamas are to sign the agreement today at noon, and the hostage prisoner exchange will begin this weekend. Again, let's hope and pray that it actually goes off. Saudi media is reporting that the long-awaited agreement between Israel and Hamas will be formally signed today at 12 noon local time, according to Israeli officials speaking on the condition of anonymity. The deal's been finalized in nearly all of its details, with the first group of hostages scheduled for release as early as Saturday or Sunday. Channel 13 further reported that a senior Israeli official confirmed only minor points remain unresolved. The official emphasized that all essential aspects of the Gaza agreement have already been completed, and the announcement now awaits final confirmation from President Trump. Meanwhile, in Cairo, negotiations are still underway. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff was seen engaged in deep discussion while an Israeli major general shook hands with the Qatari prime minister. Hamas leaders also appeared at the table, which is, I think, a first, and smiled during the talks, which is a sign they're taking as a sign of confidence that the process is moving forward. If the timelines hold, the agreement is set to go into effect tomorrow at noon Israeli time. That's 5 a.m. Eastern time. And that would mark a critical step toward the first release of hostages in the coming days. Hostages will be released, and Israeli forces will pull back to a designated line. Mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey played key roles in brokering the deal. All right, so that's what we know so far. They got confirmation that there are indeed 20 living hostages left. That's the first time that Hamas has actually confirmed that. But then Hamas also said that of the ones that are not living, we're not sure where they all are. And they asked that the IDF would open up or stop fighting them in some areas that are active combat zones, because they think that some of the bodies of the dead hostages are in those places that Israel already controls, and they have to go looking for them. There's a lot of moving parts to this. One of the things that we probably won't see when they start releasing hostages is a big ceremony like they did the last time back in March. The ceremony was calculated and intended to show or to torture the Israeli people, to show them that Hamas is still in control and that Hamas is strong and everything like that. They had hundreds and hundreds of Hamas fighters in their uniforms, all dressed to the nines, standing around, marching in unison and parading their vehicles out and everything like that. Looking at that, that was one of the tenets of this peace deal, that they cannot do that this time. However, I think it's very important I would venture to say that we will see Hamas claiming victory in this war. And you're going to have to decide for yourself whether or not you think they actually won or not. A large part of Gaza, obviously completely destroyed, probably 85%. Everybody in Gaza has been displaced. There's not one person that's been able to stay in their own house the entire time. Of course, many people have died, and Hamas is militarily defeated for the most part, meaning that they're not going to be able to mount a large attack on Israel anytime soon. But I can virtually guarantee you that there will be massive parties in the streets in Gaza, and you're going to see a lot of Hamas flags and a lot of Hamas uniforms. There's a lot of truth to that. Israel is quite diminished in the eyes of the world, but they have won every battle. They have reshaped the dynamics of the Middle East for likely generations to come. They've trounced Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and the Hashishabi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They have trounced all of their enemies on 8 fronts they've been fighting. This is what the families of the hostages are doing right now, just praying that nothing goes wrong. They're all praying. Let me go over to Amir Tsarfati's channel. He says the countdown to the next war has already begun. One thing that bears pointing out here is that there may still be more fighting. Actually, there very likely will, even if the fighting stops in Gaza, there will be more fighting in Yemen and more fighting perhaps between Israel and Iran. There's been a lot of preparations getting made. Here's just a reading between the lines guess, okay? And it's no more than that, and I wouldn't pretend otherwise. So I don't know anything special, but I'm just looking at the order in which these things happened, trying to parse out this information. I have a feeling, as over the past couple of weeks, we've seen a tremendous amount of military assets being moved over into the region. And there's been a lot of chatter that Israel was about to strike Iran again. It would not be outside the realm of possibility that all of that was staged to put pressure on Iran to get them to put pressure on Hamas. Does that make sense? Like, we are going to wipe out what's left of your economy if you don't tell Hamas to roll over. It's over. Or we will continue to decimate Hamas in Gaza, and we will strike Iran as well. So the Iranians may have actually made a back channel phone call to Hamas and said, hey, time to hang it up. The real concerning thing here is that there are still organized Hamas units in Gaza. And so this is a great day. We don't want to take anything away from that. But the objectives of this conflict were twofold: decimate Hamas and destroy them, and then make it so they can no longer govern, and then release the hostages. Now, part of this 21-point plan that President Trump came up with said that Hamas could no longer govern. They would have to turn over governance to a coalition that is run by Arab countries, etc. And they were offered the chance to get asylum in any country that would take them, most likely Turkey. So they'd be given safe passage out of Gaza. If the remaining few leaders that are left of Hamas decided to get out, they'll be allowed to leave. They have to turn over their weapons. But as late as like just a couple hours ago, Hamas was putting out, we're not going to turn over our weapons. We'll have to wait and see. Now, voluntarily turning in your weapons is a very problematic thing because nobody knows how many weapons they have. Nobody knows how many rockets they have left. Nobody knows how much ammunition they have left. And you can be virtually certain that if Hamas does turn over any weapons, they won't turn over all of them. they're going to save plenty for themselves and start planning for the next war. On top of that, this agreement is between Israel and Hamas, brokered by the United States, Egypt, and Qatar. But there are other factions in Gaza who have been tweeting all day that they're not part of this and they don't believe it and they're not going to join with it. So the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and other militant organizations within Gaza have said that they will not stop fighting, they will not give up, etc. One other thing that you will likely see once this, if this actually goes down, is more violence taking place inside Gaza, but it'll be internecine violence. It'll be violence between various tribes and militias, all vying for control. Israel, as they said, is going to pull back to a point where they control, instead of 77% of Gaza, 57% of Gaza. So they'll give about 20% of Gaza back. And then as Hamas turns over the bodies of the dead, then they will continue to pull back more and more and more. And you know, that will, Israel is not going to be pulling troops completely out of Gaza for a long time to come, if ever. We don't have any delivery vehicles for our nukes now. It's not going to happen. Russia's not going to go take over. Bottom line, it looks like the living hostages are coming home, and that is almost more than I could have hoped for. As I said, and look, I have to say, in some sense, I was wrong because I said, I don't think Hamas is going to just give them up. But we don't know all the stuff that's going on in the background. And like I said, I think it's very likely that Hamas got a call from Iran, and Iran said it's time to roll over because they're saying they're going to strike Iran again if you guys don't give up. So Hamas may not be completely defeated. Like I said, we should expect there to be celebrations with lots of Hamas flags and guys dancing around in Hamas uniforms and stuff in Gaza. Once this is over, Hamas will declare victory. No two ways about that. You can guarantee that. The Arabs always do that. And while things have quieted down and they're looking pretty good in Lebanon, things are definitely looking good in around Gaza, in Israel, down close to Gaza. They just opened the railway that goes right along the northern border of Gaza for the first time since the invasion back in 2023. So that's good. It goes right by Sderot and goes to Ashkelon. So lots of good things happening, but there's still a tremendous amount of rancor and anger around the world. And it's very likely that we have not seen the end of anti-Semitic terror attacks happening in Israel, outside of Israel, in the United States. That is a highly likely scenario that will be coming up.